This session is going to deal further with the application. How do you get people to convert from their backache mentality or their aches and pains mentality in any way, shape, or form into lifetime maintenance care for the entire family? I think we're agreed by this time that it's at the very least stupid and at the most perhaps criminally negligent to go to a chiropractor to get well and leave your kids at home to get sick. Parental responsibility says you really must bring in the children. Now, if you're failing to get that point across in your practice, you're missing all the fun in practice. Never mind the duty and the responsibility and all that heavy stuff. What about the fun in practice? I see so many chiropractors, and so many chiropractors talk to me about burnout. They're getting burned out. You don't get burned out giving adjustments. You know what burns chiropractors out? Selling a product they don't believe in. Pushing, selling the same product again and again to the same person. It comes from a patient walking in with a condition that they want cured. And you start out by lying to them. You say to them, yes, chiropractic should help your condition or will help your condition. Usually it's more towards the will or should. No problem. It'll take so many visits. It'll take so much money. Where's your insurance? And you have to understand, insurance companies will not pay for maintenance care. So because chiropractors want the insurance dollar, they have no chance of practicing chiropractic. You cannot practice chiropractic and insurance in the same office at the same time. You've got to make a choice. You either practice insurance or you practice chiropractic. Insurance companies will pay for the patching up of some condition. They don't pay for maintenance care. I mean, insurance companies now are willing to believe that if you're not overweight, and if you don't smoke, and if you eat a good diet, your chances of getting sick are lessened. But they don't pay for courses to quit smoking. They don't pay for your weight reduction courses. They don't pay for the extra cost of buying good food instead of garbage food. Insurance companies don't pay for good health. They pay for the patch-up of the symptoms of bad health. So when you want to offer somebody a lifetime practice of intelligent living, giving the kids the best chance of life because they're subluxation free, you cannot expect insurance companies to pay for that. Now that means the patients have to pay for it. Or you're going to give it away free. Which is it? Now let me say this to start off with. If you really want a husband and wife and 3 kids to come into your office and get their spine checked every week forever, you can't do that. You can't expect to do that at insurance company fees. Let me ask you, chiropractor, something. If you and your spouse and your kids wanted to get their spine checked every single week, and sometimes more often than that as needed, at the fees you are now charging, could you afford to go to you? I mean, you make a good buck. And if you couldn't afford to go to you, it's for damn sure the mailman couldn't. So if you want people reasonably to bring in the whole family, you've got to have a fee system that allows for that. Insurance companies won't pay for it. It means you and the patients have to work together to work something out. And I have always recommended, or for many years I've been recommending, an annual family maintenance fee. If you want to do the box on the wall thing, that's fine. I did that for years. I had one problem with it. In fact, all my years in practice, I'd never charged fees. I had a box on the wall. And most of the people that are doing that today were my former students or my friends or my patients who are now chiropractors, and they're doing that same thing. The problem that I have with it is that there are some people out there who, if they don't have money in hand, just won't come in. They're too proud to take, quote, charity, unquote. Now, it's true, I don't know what they're putting in the box, and I don't care, but they do. And I've actually encountered some patients who, I asked them, why didn't you come in? And they say, well, I didn't have any money. So that was defeating the very purpose of the box on the wall. And so I changed, and now I'm recommending an annual fee for the entire family, which means that, you see, if they're paying every time they come in, the very first time they need a new muffler on the car, or the boiler blows up in the house and they need to replace it, what can I dump to get the money? And very often it's chiropractic that suffers. Whereas if they're paid for the year in advance, doesn't matter what their financial circumstances are, their chiropractic is taken care of. So I'm strongly recommending an annual fee. And obviously an annual fee that the people in your community can afford. I don't really deal in fees and fee systems a great deal. It's not part of my talks. However, I would say this. Any fee system that you have that stops people from getting adjusted when they should is a lousy fee system. And any fee system that you have that stops you from surviving and making a decent professional living as a chiropractor, that too is a lousy fee system. So you've got to find the happy medium in between. Whatever works for you, whatever you feel good about, let's get that out of the way first. I believe very firmly that chiropractic was not here to make chiropractors rich, certainly not overnight. You know, half the trouble with this rotten education system we have in chiropractic is that chiropractic students graduate owing $80,000, then they have to borrow another $50,000 to get into practice. And all of a sudden, they've got the pressure of bills, 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 and the easy way out is the insurance companies. I have an idea that's what's responsible for a lot of medical fees, and a lot of dental fees, and now a lot of chiropractic fees. So the insurance companies own and operate the chiropractors by means of the debt. I always tell students, when you're going to chiropractic college, avoid student loans. They have to be paid back. Work your ass off while you're a student. Take 3 jobs and come out of school clean, or as clean as you can be. Then you have to borrow whatever it takes to get into practice. You're not under that tremendous pressure to pay back a giant overhead that stops you from honest practice. And to me, honest practice is staying away from insurance companies. Before we leave this question of fees, there's something else I want to say to those chiropractors who are already in practice and are considering this kind of family maintenance fee program and think, boy, I have to drop my fees. No, you don't. Not if they're reasonable fees. Before we talk about the cost of chiropractic care, let's spend a few minutes talking about the cost of vertebral subluxation. What do you think it costs the average family to go through life subluxated? How about a person who's a salesman and he's supposed to sell until 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but by 2 p.m. he's so pooped out he can't make a sale, he can't make another call. His subluxation has just dragged him down so far he's worthless. He's doing half a day's work. At the end of the year, that's cost him $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. He sold a couple of cars less, or a few insurance policies less. How about an accountant who by the afternoon is a little lightheaded and can't concentrate and makes mistakes? How about a carpenter? You know, a carpenter, to do the job well, has to drive in nails with 1 or 2 blows of a hammer. And an unsubluxated carpenter will do that. Imagine a carpenter going to work with a hangover, and he's just a little out of focus, and he hits the nail just a little bit crooked. How many nails does he bend and have to pull out in the course of a day? How much longer does it take that carpenter to build a house? Now, that carpenter is an employee. First of all, he's robbing his employer. Second, when it comes time to lay somebody off, who's going to get laid off? The one with full energy and good concentration who drives them home true, or the subluxated one who's not doing quite as well? Supposing instead of being a carpenter employed by somebody else, supposing it's a self-employed carpenter who builds houses or builds decks or builds anything. And now instead of taking X number of hours, it takes X number of hours plus 20 to do the same work. He's getting the same pay for a longer period of his work time. In other words, being subluxated is costing him or her money. We talk about the fact that when you're subluxated, you get sick and your medical bills go up. True. When you're subluxated, you get sick and your drug bills go up. When you're subluxated and you get sick, you lose time from work and get docked pay on some jobs. Certainly if you work for yourself. So subluxations cost all of that, but they cost a hell of a lot more than sick time. They also cost concentration time, lack of energy time. Subluxations cost in so many different ways. Supposing a kid, an 8-year-old, is sitting in class, not able to learn properly because of a vertebral subluxation. Do you remember the findings of I think it was the state of Oregon or Washington, I'm not sure which, Lyndon Smith, the famous pediatrician, was called in to make an investigation of kids who are hyperactive and therefore inattentive in class. He got called in because the parents became aware that these kids were getting drugged by the school nurse. Teachers were labeling kids hyperactive, sending them down to the nurse's office, and the nurse filled them full of a drug called Ritalin, sent them back into class where they were little zombies. Hey, it solved the teacher's problem, didn't solve the kid's problem. Lyndon Smith came in and he did an investigation, and one of the things he found out was that these so-called hyperactive kids were unable to control their blood sugar. Many of them were coming to school in the morning having a breakfast of sugar-coated cereals. You understand that the health books in grade schools are written by Kellogg's of Battle Creek, and written by the sugar industry, and written by the milk industry, and parents are having their minds polluted by thinking this is good food, and they're giving their kids sugar-coated garbage. Say, well, yeah, I know about the sugar, but at least they're getting good grains and good cereals. There's not 10 cents worth of good grain and good nutrition in a bucket full of that stuff. Yeah? I think if they threw away the cereal and ate the box it came in, they get better nutrition. So now Lyndon Smith comes in and examines these kids, and he finds out this is a blood sugar problem. He said these kids come in, they're so hyper, they're off the walls. Of course the teacher can't control them. And then halfway through the morning, they fizzle out. They burn up their blood sugar and it takes a dive. So they go out and get a candy bar and they're up off the walls again. And then by lunchtime, they're down again. And this is the way they go through the day. Lyndon Smith said, I'll tell you what we'll do. As an experiment, when these kids come into school in the morning, let's take them down to the cafeteria and give them a decent high-protein breakfast, which will raise their blood sugar gradually and slowly to a desirable level and maintain it through the day, and let's see what happens to their behavior. And the result was the behavior pattern improved tremendously. Now, as well as the intake of food having important impact upon your behavior, so does the way your body is able to handle food have an important impact upon behavior. Somebody once said, well, you are what you eat. That's nonsense. You are what your body is able to do with what you eat. And if you're subluxated, your body can't utilize its foods properly. Result, body chemistry is out of balance, and kids in class lose their attention span. Now you've got an 8-year-old sitting in class getting good nutrition into his little body, can't utilize it properly because of subluxation. What happens to the kid's grades? See, one of the things subluxation will do is knock a few points off your IQ. And you don't notice it because you don't know what the IQ is supposed to be. The kid's coming home with B's and B pluses. You say, hey, he's doing great. Yeah, he is, till you realize he could have been getting A pluses. And now when he graduates from high school years later with SATs of 1050, say, hey, you can get into a good college with that. Yes, but you can't get into the best college with a 1050. For that, you need a 1250. So he goes to college, but maybe not the best one. Result, it costs him $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year for the rest of his life. That's what subluxations are costing that kid, you see? And you're talking about reducing fees. Why don't you instead teach the patients how damn important it is to be unsubluxated? For the husband, the wife, how many accidents you think there are because somebody's attention wandered because they're subluxated? What does that cost the national economy? Vertebral subluxation is costing this nation a vast fortune, and individual families are paying it. I told you about getting on a plane and realizing the damn pilot is subluxated. What about the 30,000 bolts that hold that plane together made by subluxated machinists? And everything around us is made by subluxated people. And we've got to pass the impact of this across to our patients. You know, we're not doing the job. They're coming in moaning and bitching about their backaches, and we talk back to them right about their backaches. And you say, well, that's what they want. I don't give a damn what they want. We must give the people what they need, not what they want. Well, they'll drop out. Good, let them drop out. And bring in instead those who will listen. Look, when you explain chiropractic to people, not everybody's going to buy it. That's the first thing you have to reconcile yourself to. When you start to talk good chiropractic, don't expect to win 100% of the time. You could talk to 4 people tomorrow morning and explain the wonders of lifetime family maintenance care, and they all turn you down, and you say, you see, this system doesn't work. If you'd only talked to one more, that would have been the one family that would have been staying unsubluxated for the rest of their life if you hadn't chickened out and done a half-assed job. Remember, too, when you first start doing this, you're not very good at it. You haven't tried it before. And you try it tentatively. You know, when you go into business, you don't throw everything you own into that business. You save a little something for a rainy day. And you do that, I will guarantee that business will fail and you along with it. You want to succeed? Burn your bridges. Burn your bridges. You know, the greatest thing that Washington ever did when he crossed that Delaware River, when he got to the other side, he said, okay, men, smash the boats. What, are you kidding? There's the British Army over here. If we smash the boats, we can't get out. And he said, you're damn right you can't get out. Now it's win or else. You have no choice. This is what you and I need to do. We've got to burn our bridges and smash the boats. Not, well, I'll try it. And at the first sign of opposition, we back off. Boy, if you had nowhere else to go, if the only thing you could get were lifetime maintenance care, I bet you'd get it, wouldn't you? Your life and your livelihood depend upon it. You'd get it. There's not one of you in this room couldn't do it. But we lack the guts. We like to do things the way we've always done them. We love to live in our little comfort zone. Hey, you know, I'm doing all right. And there are many chiropractors in this room, and many will be listening to the tapes, and they're doing wonderfully, financially. See, I'm not concerned with how well you're doing. I'm concerned with the people out there, how badly they're doing because they're going through life subluxated. That's the problem. I don't care how well you think you're doing. If you really think you're doing well, one night just stand outside the movie in your town or the supermarket and watch coming out of there hundreds of people that are not patients in your office or anybody else's office, that are going through life subluxated because we've concentrated on backaches. And we kid ourselves, hey, I'm seeing X number of people a day. I have a good practice. I'm serving the community. How can you be satisfied when there's one family in your community that you failed to try and reach? Hey, you try and screw it up. That's fine. I'm all for you. Try again on somebody else. But to not even try, to give up before you start. We talked about how criminal it is to go to a chiropractor to get well and leave the kids home to get sick. How do you feel about the chiropractor who gets somebody in and fails to at least try to convert them into family maintenance care? Because the insurance company won't pay for that. Or because I tried it once and they didn't buy it. Hey, not everybody's going to buy it. You know, there's a lot of people out there have minds like the pupil of the eye. The more light you shine in them, the more closed they become. But remember this, when you heard this chiropractic story, you bought it hook, line, and sinker, and you're no dummy. You bought it because it's valid. And you can convince other people when you're prepared to step outside your comfort zone. When I talk to chiropractors about doing things in their practice, they start to pick and choose. Well, I could do this, and I could do this. Oh, I couldn't do that. That's not my personality. So you want to do things that keep you just where you are. What needs to be changed in your practice, I hate to tell you this, what needs to be changed is your personality. Don't tell me you can't do it because it's not your personality. Change your damn personality. That's the challenge. Well, I've always been this way. Well, that means I always have to be this way, right? I don't run my life. The trees run my life. Who runs your life? Let's start taking charge. Let's do what needs to be done rather than what we've always done. And you give people 2 or 3 or 4 things to do, they'll always pick the ones that are easiest. Everybody's willing to change everything that's unimportant. I used to do a series of seminars in my house. When I practiced in Spring Valley, I was teaching at what is now New York State Chiropractic College. It was then Columbia. After I had a philosophical disagreement with the school, they switched from straight to CCE, and there was no place for my kind of philosophy there anymore, so I left. But a lot of my students started coming up to the house to visit once a month. Saturday nights, we have an open house, and the students would come in and have a rap session. And we start at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and go on till 7 the next morning. All through the night, we rap philosophy. And then, of course, these students graduated, and they started coming back in as chiropractors and bringing their friends. Pretty soon, we were getting, anywhere up to 125 chiropractors to one of these sessions. And there were all sorts of philosophical questions, and many of them began to get into how do you make the change kind of questions. How do you change? And one of the chiropractors there had failed in practice 5 times. A very dear friend of mine, a super, super guy, Paul McGrath, and he would come to these sessions. Every time he failed in practice, he was a former iron worker, and he'd go back out to work the high iron in New York State in this time of year in the winter, freezing cold and high winds. He's up walking the scaffolding to make enough money to get back into practice. And it's a very high-paying job. And 6 months later, he's back in practice again, failed again. Did it again, failed again. Did it again, and he kept doing it and kept failing. Of course he kept failing. He kept doing the same damn thing. There is a law of cause and effect. If you do this and this and this, and that results, you do this and this and this again, guess what the result will be? The same. Well, I'll do it with my left hand instead. Same result. I'll do it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Same result. I'll leave Spring Valley and do it in Saskatchewan. Same result. If you do this and this and this, that lead to failure, and you do it again, it'll lead to failure again. Everybody's willing to change the unimportant things. I'll change from Spring Valley to Saskatchewan. I'll change from the right hand to the left. I'll move my drapes to get them a different color. This guy came in after 5 times of failure. He said, Reggie, I realized finally what I've been doing wrong. I've got to get my literature racks up at eye level. Now, I guess it makes sense to put the literature where you can read it, but that's not what I'm all about. He was willing to change anything except himself. Now, what some of you want is chiropractic of the best kind on your terms. And there may not be any such thing. If you seriously want a lifetime family maintenance practice, then you're going to have to make some changes. I'll tell you, I'll warn you of this. If you do what I say, I'm going to work your ass off. You know, I had chiropractors tell me, hey, Reggie, I don't want to work 7 days a week. And you know my story. I saw 300 patients a day, 7 days a week for 16 years. And chiropractors saying to me, Reggie, I don't want to see that many a day. And I don't want to work 7 days a week. I got a family. I got my duties to the church and my charities, and I like my gardening, and I play my golf. Hey, you can do all of those things. You can play golf and tend your flower garden and fly your kite and go to church. Just remember that while you're doing it, there are thousands of kids out there dying because you'd rather sit in church. All right? I'm not against churches or golf. It's a matter of establishing priorities here. Remember that every time you're not available or fail to let people know that you're available and what you're there for, somebody is literally losing part of his or her life because they don't know. The biggest killer in your community, the biggest killer in your practice is ignorance. All those people who are getting 10% of their chiropractic value because nobody told them the other side. So if you really want to see this thing change, you must change what you do. Everybody wants to change everybody else. If only the damn Russians would do this. If only Noriega would do that. If only the Jews would do this. If only the blacks would do that. Let's blame somebody. The fact is, you can't change anybody on this earth except you. The only person you can change is you. So if there's to be a change, you have to change. I have to change. And that's it. That's what it's about. So you really must make up your mind that sitting here listening to me is not going to change a damn thing. If you really seriously want change, you must sit down and plan, okay, I'm going to no longer do this and this, I'm going to do that and that. And don't pick the easy ones. The easy ones probably mean there's no change at all. Well, I'm going to change my hours. Big deal. Yeah? What we really need to change most of the time is what we're saying to the patient who comes in. We're not turning them from their backache evaluation into lifetime maintenance care. Well, I try, Reggie. Yes, but you're not trying effectively, and you're giving them an alternative. Haven't you yet learned that if you give people an escape, they'll take it? It's like saying to a patient, now we have our lecture coming up on Wednesday night. We'd like you to bring somebody with you. You know what that means? We'd like you to bring somebody with you. It means you don't have to. Guaranteed they won't do it. 9 out of 10 will not bring anybody under those circumstances. You told them you don't have to. You may if we'd like you to. Well, if I get around to it, I will. And they don't. Change what you're saying. Well, I couldn't tell them they must come. Yes, you can. I make a deal with my patients. Real easy. The patient comes in, they want their backache fixed up, and I say, I don't do that. Let me show you what I do. And I talk to them about lifetime family maintenance care. And I talk about how many visits are involved in this. Because you know when you see a new patient, you want to check their spine at least 3 times a week for the first few weeks and then gradually cut down till you can monitor the thing. And with a family, a husband and wife and 3 kids, that's 5 people coming in 3 times a week, 15 visits for that week at $40 a shot. Are you kidding yourself? So I said, okay, we're talking about $8,000 to $10,000 worth of chiropractic care a year. That's ridiculous. So here's what we've done. We have established a family fee, which is only $1,500 a year for the entire family. Everybody comes in, not as often as you can afford, as often as you need to have your spine checked. The total cost is only $1,500, but in order to get that, you must do a couple of things to help me realize my dream. And my dream is an unsubluxated community. If you'll help me do that, we'll give you this chiropractic for this family fee. And you make up your own numbers, your own fees. Now, what do they have to do to help make this an unsubluxated community? Bring their friends to a lecture. That's the number one. Every new patient in my practice was required to bring a non-patient friend to a lecture. And the very first lecture we gave brought into the practice as patients 372 new families. Now, would that help your practice? Then get off your butt and get out there and organize chiropractic nights. We've got to change what we're doing in the office. Some of you go to practice management people and you follow religiously what they tell you without considering whether it's right or wrong for you or your kind of practice. You have to understand that every practice management program I've ever seen, and I speak at several of them, relates to a basically insurance practice. Now, if you do what they tell you all the way, and they do have a lot of good stuff to offer, but you don't have to buy the whole package. If you do what they say all the way, you're going to run a mainly insurance practice, if that's what you want. If you want a family-oriented maintenance practice, you're going to have to deviate from one thing that I think is the key destructive factor in the running of a chiropractic practice. The one thing that is stopping chiropractic practices from growing, the one thing that was started, I think, by Jimmy Parker, and I hope I'm not slandering Jimmy when I say this. I think he started it, and all the other practice managers picked up on it. He gave people the idea that you are supposed to do a medical procedure called a report of findings. A report of findings is a totally medical procedure built in the medical model, which says the patient comes in and you discuss their problem, their disease, and you outline a plan for the treatment of that disease. That's what a report of finding is. We have found that your problem is caused by this and this and this, and it'll take so many adjustments and so many visits, and here's the treatment plan to treat and cure that. Now, as long as you're doing a report of findings, you can never get them to understand the principle that you don't treat disease. You're telling them right off, up front, I do treat disease, this is my disease treatment plan for you, but I'd like you to have family maintenance care. That's riding 2 horses going in opposite directions. If you really want a family maintenance practice, don't do a report of findings. If you need to take x-rays for chiropractic purposes, take x-rays for your chiropractic purposes. Although I sometimes have difficulty thinking what they might be. But if you do take x-rays, first of all, you don't show them to the patient can't read x-rays. Secondly, you build up this false pretense that what you see on the x-ray is what you're going to adjust. That's not true. You adjust every subluxation you find. Or you're committed to an HIO type practice where you know in advance what vertebrae you're going to adjust, and the x-rays are for something else. You know what the x-rays are usually for? As a selling tool to use as a presentation of findings at the case report of findings. Here's your x-ray. This is what a normal x-ray looks like. See how yours deviates. This is all a lie. First of all, there's no such thing as a normal x-ray. One of the key teachings of chiropractic philosophy is that no 2 human beings are alike.